Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is the Back to School edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. Today's August 19th, 2016.
Okay, in the intro, I mentioned it's back to school time, and I know that because I just wrote a really big check to the local community college for my dear daughter, Michaela, and all of her books. She's going back to school in a week. George, you have two daughters. You're going to suffer the same fate as I.
Yes, one's already started, and we're taking Laura, our other daughter, up to Atlanta this weekend for the start of her school year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Kevin, do you know what really gets me? The parking permit is more than their health insurance for one semester. Oh my, you think, where do I begin? Kevin,
No, it's
broke.
Well, you're a poor priest from Florida. I'm a middle-class business owner from Connecticut, and education cost is just atrocious, especially textbooks. Now, I remember back in 1985, 86, 87, in my college days, I was outraged. I was paying $60 for a book from the professor who was teaching the class that included all his notes and slides that he was projecting on the board anyway. You don't know until the last week of class that everything he was going to present was in the book, so you could have just taken your own notes and saved the money. But that scam is still going on today. We're paying $250 and $280 for some of Michaela's books, with which she will just use for a year.
Well, this is the year that we had to buy Laura, who's stethoscopes, blood pressure monitors, scrubs, because she starts her clinical rotations at the Emory University Hospital. And man, Kevin, I feel poor. And I've not even gotten there yet.
That's right. Well, hopefully our children will be able to support us one day. Now, George and I are both on Facebook, and we post stories from like Anglican Inc. and stuff that's going on in our lives, and we kind of like to be public, and I'm putting links here on how to friend George on Facebook or friend myself. Here, you include the link for Anglican Unscripted so you can like that as well. And I was looking, and George, I see that you now have a puppy, according to your Facebook feed.
We got a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel that our daughter is named Julius. He thought that a little tiny dog needed a masculine name so that he wouldn't have a complex and,
You didn't want to go with Goliath. Okay, all right.
No. But, so Julius loves me. He thinks I'm the most wonderful human being who ever lives. He wakes me up in the morning to go to the bathroom so I can take him outside. But as we go outside, he happens to go to the bathroom 2 or 3 times as we progress out the house. So we're in the puppy training phase. And so we've taken up all the carpets, just have tile and wood flooring. But it is fun. I've taken him with me. Well, I'm on vacation right now. And one of the things I love to do on vacation is to garden. And so I go to the church most mornings around 7:30 before anybody gets there, and I weed. And it really is a time when I commune with God and sing psalms and praises and pull weeds, and the dog chews weeds and defecates, and
George. Okay. And that's probably the biggest difference between the two of us, how we vacation. For me, it's a pina colada on the sun deck of a Royal Caribbean cruise ship somewhere between here and the Bahamas. Weeding, that's not me. All right.
Well, I'm also in the process of replacing the valve cover gaskets in the car. So auto repair, house cleaning, and weeding, that's a vacation for me. Plus reading. I love reading.
That's fun. Yeah. Cool. And what books have you read this week?
Books. Yeah. Oh, wonderful time. I've been reading all these Russian Soviet histories and everything. I passed from North Korea and the Clinton administration now into reading about Stalinism. So we're on a trajectory here.
That's cool. All right, so we better move on to the news here real quick. First, we're going to talk kind of like the speech, the ACC speech heard around the world. A lot of people got reports that they saw from the ACNS, the Anglican News Service, that Adaiwo Farone had given a great speech, and it really marked a time when, maybe the ACC was going to go conservative. He spoke of how we need to ignore the Western influence in our church and really work within the confines of Africa. And George and I have kind of seen this before, right, George?
Yeah, I've been covering Josiah Adaiwo for about 15 years now in the media. I've known him well. I've heard him speak a dozen times or so when he was a sixth preacher in Cambridge, when I've seen him preach at Wycliffe College in Toronto, most recently he was the Anglican General Synod of Canada's, and now he's down in Kigali addressing the Kappa primates.
We didn't tell, some people may not know who he is. Who is he?
Josiah Adaiwo Farone is the General Secretary of the Anglican Consultative Council. Now, that nickname for the Anglican Consultative Council's staff is the Anglican Communion Office.
ACO.
However, people should remember there is no such thing legally as the ACO. Technically, legally, practically, it's the ACC. But just as we call the Episcopal Church Center 815, some people call the Anglican Consultative Council bureaucrats the ACO.
They have
Gotta
their own
get the
stationery,
nomenclature
though.
down.
Yes.
Well, they've printed up. It's funny. John Peterson in the late 90s, when George Carey was Archbishop of Canterbury, printed up stationery that called the Anglican Communion Office. And George Carey told him to pulp it all. No, you're not going to do that. Then Kenneth Kieran came on board, and during the interregnum between Carey and Williams, Kieran was able to slip in some new stationery calling themselves the ACO. And now that sort of little self-aggrandizement has continued, so Adaiwo Farone identifies himself as the General Secretary of the Anglican Communion. Yeah, and
okay, whatever.
Queen Marie of Romania, that's me.
Yes.
Call yourself whatever.
So the head honcho goes down to a Kappa meeting, not the official Kappa meeting, kind of the Kappa heads, and gives a speech. And he gives the typical speech, all things to all men.
When the speech came out, the first notice of it was an Anglican Communion News Service story. Now, you need to remember that's the press office. It's not an independent news service. It's the press office of the ACC. And they released a story with excerpts from the speech. And I saw this and I decided to sit on it because I had no way to verify this. And this seemed a remarkable change because Adaiwo Farone had been in Lusaka just railing against the GAFCON. And he had been in Canada, Toronto, earlier this summer saying what a wonderful people the Anglican Church of Canada is. And now we've got him, according to this news report, saying how horrible the Canadians and the Americans are. So either this guy is all things to all people, we haven't seen the whole speech, or there's a cunning plan. And Kevin,
Conspiracy.
I think it's a cunning plan. It's a cunning plan. Now, friends, get out the tinfoil hats now.
I don't have my tinfoil. Oh, whatever.
If you look at the text, the full text of the speech, which we published on Anglican Ink, you're seeing what Farone is saying is Africa first. Africa should address its problems and not be caught up in the concerns of the Western churches. Meaning, you, Africa, are only going to step onto the stage and be regarded as being an equal by the Western churches once you address the issues and problems in your own midst. That includes economic development. That includes poverty. That includes relations, with these laws condemning homosexuality, for instance. Your churches need to address those local issues and not bother your pretty little heads about gay bishops and gay blessings in the United States or in Canada.
In fact, I think he implied that, Lambeth and the ACC will handle the big stuff. We'll do the heavy lifting. All the controversies that suffer our church, We'll take care of. You just deal with the little things in your own countries.
Now, just when Josiah Ferron met with some of the heads of the mission agencies late last year, early this year, in London, he really trashed GAFCON. Some of the people present told me, off the record, that he just said, these GAFCON is working against the interests of the church. You mission societies, stay as far away as possible. Don't get sucked into their orbit. They're bad news. Well, you and I are bad news, according to the ACC.
Ed Lambeth.
And this goes back a long way. It's not new.
Yes. No.
But let me just sort of push this out a bit. Adawa Ferron essentially gave the same speech in Toronto, and the same speech many times. He's just changed the illustrations and the euphemisms and the language to appeal to the local audience. In Canada, he was all touchy and feely, but he pushed the point, trust London. Route your money through London. Route your news through London. Let London get your back, if you will. Yeah. No condemnations of what the Canadians were doing to cause the distress in Africa, but rather trust us in London. Now he goes to Africa. First time since the ACC meeting in Lusaka, where he called Eliud Wabukula of Kenya a liar and basically dismissed Munir Nice as, poor man, he's ignorant. He don't speak to good English, because he misunderstood what Justin Welby was saying back in January. So now Ferron is going to be in front of these guys face to face, really for the first time since then. So he comes out of the box swinging, basically whipping up the crowd with all this good time, old-fashioned, American-bashing religion, conservatism, but the message is the same. If you read the speech, the message is, the ACC is here to help. Trust us. We will hook you up with wealthy people in the West. You don't have to listen to them, but come to us and we'll give you their money. Their money's still good in Africa. It's a part of a larger plan of centralization that we see Justin Welby pushing, that the ACC is pushing, calling themselves the Anglican Communion Office. It's all part of an ongoing process to basically neuter the churches who basically wish to be identified by the belief, not by their clothing or their associations.
Well, if I'm an African primate, that's kind of what I want to hear, because I don't want to have to deal with America. I don't want to have to deal with Canada. I really don't want to have to deal with all the heresies that are going on over here. And boy, if you guys can make my job a little simpler, just by providing the information I need, providing the financial wherewithal for our ministries and stuff like that, and give us the mosquito nets, and basically don't do anything else to muster things up here. That's kind of what I want to hear, George.
Yeah, and there are some African leaders like the Archbishop of West Africa, the Archbishop of South Africa, the Archbishop of Central Africa, who are very amenable to this. Look, they're not, the Central Africans and the West Africans, they don't agree with the gay agenda of the West, but they're happy to cash the checks that come out of London and New York, and just to be left alone and spend the money as they like. It's these darned Ugandans and Nigerians and Kenyans who have this thing called integrity. Not integrity like we have in the Episcopal Church. But
no, not the Episcopal integrity, but real integrity.
Meaning that, truth and gospel and faith cannot be compromised. In other words, if I had a Catholic church in Brooklyn and a mafia don wanted to give me money, is that right or is that wrong? Well, the analogy is Adawa Ferron is saying, take the mafia's money. You still praying to God, yeah. and maybe they'll change maybe he'll stop murdering people. Or do you say, no, I can't take money that has been gotten from that is tainted? And Adawa Ferron is singing a song of trying to lull the Africans away from GAFCON, away from their spiritual foundations, into a client system where no longer is London or Washington their political clients. That's now going to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. It's a new colonialism. It's a new paternalism.
Yeah, there's no better way of getting people onto your side than saying, "I agree with you," even though you don't. Let's move on to some other news here. A couple weeks ago, there's some rumors going on that the Episcopal Divinity School was going to suspend seminary MDivs in the future. That was just a rumor we heard, and a day later, there was nothing of it. 2 days later, there was an official statement saying, yes, we have decided not to have students, but keep our teachers. So that's what I read. I don't know if it's true or not. And I'm like, that's like the teachers union winning Powerball. You get to come and earn your salary as a teacher and have no students. That's amazing. But I have George here to give me the real story. George, what's going on at EDS?
What's happening at EDS is what's happening at liberal seminaries and Roman Catholic seminaries throughout the United States and Canada. They're offering a product that no one wants to pay for. When in Philadelphia, when we lived there, I would drive past most days St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, this huge edifice in Wynwood on City Line Avenue that looked like the Pentagon. It's one of these huge places that could have 500 students, and I think they had maybe 10 or 15 at the time. EDS, beautiful properties in and around Cambridge, around Harvard. They've been living on their endowment for years. Their student body population's getting older and older and having to borrow money to get educated. The students are graduating with $50,000 to $100,000 in debt in their mid-50s with a ministry degree. It's not a sustainable economic model.
An EDS ministry
degree.
Yes.
And their last dean was Catherine Hancock Ragsdale, who, Kevin, do you know that name?
I do. Is that not the abortion is a blessing dean?
Yes. That's the woman who was the one of the leaders of the Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice.
That's correct. Yes.
And it's almost beyond parody how kooky EDS was really for the past 20, 25 years.
Well, I have to agree with you because I remember we posted the story and one of my friends on Facebook commented and said, and he was in Bishop Spong's diocese when he was about to go to seminary. He said Bishop Spong would not let him go to EDS because it was too liberal. Mm. That's how bad EDS was.
Well, when I came out of seminary, when I was going to seminary from Philadelphia, I was given three choices. I could go to EDS, General, or Yale, and the bishop would pay for it. And then I could go anywhere else I wanted, but he wouldn't pay for it, and he wouldn't ordain me. Mm-hmm. So that's how I wound up at Yale. It was the least of three evils, and I had a good time there. But EDS, even back in the late '80s, early '90s, Otis Charles, former Bishop of Utah, who was the gay man, he preceded Gene Robinson, was dean there for a while. And I remember when I was applying, looking at seminaries, I looked at the scholarships, and there was a scholarship for gay students. And this is in the late '80s, early '90s. Now, that's real. I mean, you're talking about way ahead of the curve. Yeah. Way ahead of the curve.
Wow.
So, but it's the economics of higher liberal education. It's so horrendously expensive to run these places. Teachers have, featherbed contracts, and EDS just ran out of cash.
Now, was I right in the reading that the teachers will stay on?
They're going to, for the time being. Mm-hmm. It's the ideal situation. The staff will get paid, but the students will be gone, and then they'll gradually wind down so the staff have time to find new jobs. Good luck to that. Yeah. And so they're going to be out in about a year or so. But the Gary Hall is the former dean of the Washington National Cathedral. He's the chairman of the board of the trustees. Oddly enough, Gary Hall was the dean of Seabury Western, and he was the one who closed that seminary. So now this is the second time in liquidating a Cemetery.
Cemetery. You got it. Cemetery. Well, let's leave on a high note here. We're kind of running up against our time. There are great seminaries that are doing successful. I can think of Nashotah, Trinity, Reformed Episcopal Seminary in Philadelphia, Fuller out in California. There are ones who are kind of providing a education that seminary students want, George.
And are willing to pay for, because they're giving a grounding and a preparation for the ministry. You could graduate from EDS without ever cracking open a Bible. But you can take as many courses on transgender theology and diversity as your little heart desires. When I was in seminary, this is going back a long time now, I would joke with some of my friends that it was cheaper for some of the people to be in our class instead of having psychoanalysis. I mean, they didn't know what they wanted to do with their life, and so they went to seminary.
Sure.
EDS and other places, and sadly now my alma mater, Yale, now cater to self-affirming these wounded, hurt people. They're not. In other words, when you go to seminary, you're not being trained anymore at EDS and at Yale and General and other places like that to go lead a church. It's basically an extended 3-year therapeutic vacation.
Affirming the reaffirmation. Yes.
Yes. And talk about conviction of sin. What do you? Yeah. It's not going to happen.
No, it's not. All right. Well, we have wasted your Friday, and we apologize, but we want to thank you for stopping in. Do be sure to link to us on Facebook and become our friends. We need friends. Like the Anglican Unscripted website. And I'm actually, we're going to add something new here to the closing of each show. After the bloopers and stuff like that, we're going to put up links to the previous show for people who haven't watched it, and other things to help subscribe to the channel to promote Anglican Unscripted, because I know you guys are promoting it by sharing it with your friends. Sure, you laugh and stuff. In fact, George, I know that there's 3 types of Anglicans in the world. Well, George was like, of course, Kevin, we have the 3 streams. I said, no, it's not like that anymore. In my travels, I meet 3 types of people. I meet the people who've never heard of Anglican TV, and that size of Anglican is dwindling. They're not that many anymore. I meet people who watch Anglican Unscripted all the time. And then now there's a new type of Anglican out there. And those are the people who, when they're shaking my hand and say, oh, you're Kevin from Anglican TV, they're giggling because they just saw the last episode, and they're trying not to laugh out loud. And I appreciate the holding back the laughing out loud part. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and I want you to annoy the Archbishop of Canterbury and watch, and tell your friends to watch Anglican Unscripted. And this has been episode 243. We're not dead yet.
Not dead yet. Three, 2, 1. Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is the Back to School edition. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger, and today's August 19th, 2016.
Pick up after yourself. The cat loves licking your plates.
And this is a back-to-school edition. You've just paid a tuition bill, and I'm driving to Atlanta tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. One of the things the cat loves is we have these big, tall tumblers. Mm-hmm. And so if we have a glass of milk, at the very bottom, there's just a little residue of milk. He'll stick his big arm in. He'll swiggle his little paw around, soaping it up, lift it up, and put the paw in his mouth so he can get the milk. And I'm like, that's ingenious. Then I squirt him with water. It's just, not stealing my milk. This is the type of cat who goes up to a cow.
Oh, my.
All right, so let's go on to our episode.